In this video, we will learn how we can continuously repeat a sequence of instructions until a certain condition is reached. We will do this by using loops. We have three types of loops. We have for loop, for each loop, and while loop. So we will start with the loop, for which we know how many times we want to loop when we get to the loop as we are running the code. And there are actually two kinds of loops. There is the for loop and there is the for each loop. In this video we will do for loop, and in the next video we will do for each loop. And finally, in the last video of loops, we will talk about a loop that we use when we don't know how many times we want to iterate when we get to the loop. Let's start with the for loop. First, remove this update method, we don't need it. Now go to the start method and type the keyword for and put open close parentheses, and I will put number of things between these parentheses. Now open the curly brace and close the curly brace. So this is the body of the for loop, and this is the stuff that we will do certain number of times. So here I am going to say for integer I equal to 0. So I'm going to use I is something called loop control variable, and this is the variable that we will use in the whole process to control the loop. I will initialize I to 0 and I will continue the loop as long as I is less than 3. And then finally I will increment I by 1 each time through the loop, so that I goes up by 1 every time we are done with the loop. So this piece initialize our loop control variable, and this is the condition that we check so that we can decide when to stop the loop. And finally, this is the expression that we use to modify our loop control variable so that we don't get stuck in infinite loop. So we have to carefully modify the loop control variable so that we don't get looping and looping and looping. So initialization, condition, and modifier. To find the way it works, put a simple statement inside the body of the for loop. So I will say print this is for loop. It's just a simple statement that I want to display in the console, and I'm going to print another statement that is outside the for loop body, and I will say print end of the for loop. So the way it works, for the first time the value of I will be 0. Then we will check this condition. If I is less than 3, which is true because 0 is less than 3, we will do all the stuff here. Then we will come back to I and increment this by 1. Now the value of I is 1, not 0. And then we will check this condition. If I is less than 3, which is true again, we will do all the stuff again here. Then we will come back to I again and we will increment I by 1. And we will check this condition. If I is less than 3, which is again true because 2 is less than 3, we will do the stuff here. And we will come back to I again and we will increment I by 1. Now the value of I is 3, and we will check this condition. If 3 is less than 3, which is no longer true. So we will drop out of the loop and we will print this statement. Save it and go to Unity, hit the play button, and let me open the magnifier tool so that you can clearly see what's going on. Now go to console window, and here you can see we have printed the single statement 3 times. This is for loop, this is for loop, and this is for loop, and the last statement, that is end of the for loop. And that's how we can continuously repeat a single or multiple of instruction until a certain condition is reached. Now come back to Visual Studio and let's do one more example. Let me comment all these lines of code. So press Ctrl K and backslash. So I'm going to type for integer I, and I'm going to initialize I to 1 and I will continue the loop as long as I is less than or equal to 100, and I am going to increment I by 9. And in the body of the loop I'm going to just print the value of the counter variable. So I will say value of counter variable plus I. Now save this and go to Unity and hit the play button. Now go to console window, and here you can see we have the value 1, 10, 19 and so on. So we are incrementing by 9. Now come back to Visual Studio. Here the point is that we don't always have to initialize our counter variable at 0. We don't always have to use less than in our condition, and we don't always have to increment our modifier by 1. And that's the point here. That's it for today's code. Hope you guys like this video. Thank you for watching.